I've heard you refer to the blockchain as a source of truth. What do you mean when you say that?
Well, the thing that's amazing about this technology, so I've worked in web technologies for years, for the last 25 years or so. And the thing that's amazing about the web that we know, which is the underlying infrastructure of the content side of the web, and why that was so important, is it allowed everyone to connect from all over the world, and you didn't need anybody to okay it. It just sort of happened. The thing about blockchain technology is it leverages that same kind of infrastructure to allow people all over the world to connect regarding financial services. The difference about it is, though, you can't change. It's an immutable record. So it is a thing that, you can like erase something in your checkbook register if you have one, or if you have a database that's actually capturing all of the transactions, somebody could go in and edit that database. It can't happen on an open public blockchain. And so it is a source of truth, and that it's that truth that you can trust in. And so one of the things that we always talk about is that blockchain, it doesn't need anybody to okay or to have permission around it, which is super important because you don't want any one government or any one entity to control it.
Right.
You want to be able to have faith in what the technology is creating for you. And so when it's an immutable public record, you know that, okay, no one can change it, no one owns it, no one controls it, and it is a source of truth.
Makes perfect sense. You may have answered this question just now in what you were saying, but just to make it very explicit, what does blockchain make possible that most people don't realize it makes possible?
Yeah, I think so. I'll say there are so many things that blockchain makes possible with traditional finance and differs from traditional financial infrastructure. I'm going to start with the thing that I think is the most important thing that it makes possible. What we have in our existing financial infrastructure, and so when I use that term, it's mostly the banks, like the web of banks that are all over the United States. They might be able to interact seamlessly. Although sometimes when you're like moving money from one bank, like let's say you have Wells Fargo and you want to move it to Chase, it still takes sometimes like 3 days for them to see it. I actually just had this happen where I moved money from one account to my son's account, my account to my son's account, and it was pending for 3 days, and it was in the same bank. So those challenges are small challenges that we might have to incur here in the United States. But anytime you try to move money outside the United States, so if my son lived in Peru and I wanted to send him money that he could just like pick up, it's going to take a while for it to get there. Sometimes it takes like 5 days for it to like transfer, and I have a bunch of fees on top of it. Or if I want to use traditional rails, I would go to like Western Union or MoneyGram to be able to do it. So I have fees and time. Blockchain seamlessly allows the transfer of value from me to my son in Peru in 3 seconds. So it's that friction that sits in the interconnected infrastructure from a global standpoint. So when I'm trying to move money across a border, it's just a seamless setup. So you move it and then it gets there and then it's theirs. So it's not only immutable, meaning no one can change it, no one can touch it. It is final in 3 to 5 seconds, and that's huge. So it solves that problem, and it makes it so that you can open the world up to be able to receive value, like from the diaspora sitting in New York and they want to send money to their family in Ghana. They can now do it for not only like speed, that's amazing, they can do it for fees that are very minimal. To do a transaction like that on Stellar is less than a 100 thousandth of a penny. That's huge. So it creates like a very inexpensive way to traverse that. But there's so many other things that it's fun to have on blockchain. Like if you think about, probably people have heard of meme coins and all these assets that sit on a bunch of other chains. Those are like trading cards of like my generation, like things that you can like hold. There's only a few of them made. You can keep them, you can hold them, they're valuable. But the technology allows for so much innovation that we haven't seen really come to life yet. And even in what we call, another term that we call decentralized finance, it means that you don't have to rely on any centralized entity like a bank to help you create, yield-bearing accounts or to help you create an opportunity to increase your wealth. So there's a bunch of stuff, but my favorite is the cross-border.
Which the whole theme of this interview is like, what are the implications for blockchain technology on human flourishing? And this strikes me as a very direct implication on human well-being, because when you imagine people in crisis situations who need money now and can't wait 5 days, who may die in 5 days if they don't receive money now. This solves that problem.
Well, and we're doing that. We see that. We work with the United Nations High Commission on Refugees. They actually use Stellar to send aid into different countries, and before they would have to bring a huge like buckets of money into countries and have a lot of security, and then have people be able to come to receive that. And so it just takes time to get the aid there. And now what happens when they use Stellar Rails is they send a text message to the recipient and they say, you are eligible to receive aid from the UNHCR. Download this wallet. They download the wallet. The recipient has to type in the same information to validate who they are, and the aid is in the wallet once they finish. So it's like less than 2 minutes. It would be even less if you didn't have to. It would be 3 seconds if you didn't have to type in and confirm who you are, but of course you do.
Right. So once you already have the wallet,
once you have the wallet,
3 seconds.
Then it's like boom. Well, and that's the beauty of this, is that it actually creates one of the things that I think is, people just, they hear crypto, they hear blockchain, and they think of all the things that we read about in the newspapers. The thing that I love is the way that it creates empowerment in the hands of people like aid recipients, like diaspora in different countries who are receiving, money from their family, or like people who don't have a bank account because it's really hard in their country, or they don't trust their banks because they're government owned or something. And now they can have a place to hold their assets because they can convert their local currency to a digital asset and just hold it. And then they can take it out as they need it. Like, it creates this sense of empowerment and ownership that's very, very different than our traditional financial infrastructure. And I think it's really hard sometimes for us as we sit here in the United States or in Western Europe, and we have access to all these things, and we don't understand what that might feel like. I spend a lot of my life traveling the world, meeting people and understanding that I don't know what their problems are. They do. And this is a huge solution for them. So it's just a really valuable, has a lot of impact on humanity.